Hey guys, welcome to the Big Ten Week 5 preview of the Five Star Zone. Rico Beard, Harold Shelton from the Big Ten Network. Joining me, Harold. Last week, a little bit of a separation week. We saw, USC take a step forward. We saw Michigan take a step forward. We saw Indiana just leap past everybody. Everybody kept saying, who's going to be Indiana this year? And Indiana said, we will be Indiana this year. Illinois, go to the back. Now it's time for a little bit others because now the leaders are actually going to be playing some teams, and we're going to see how good they are. But first, before we get to those, let's go to the game of USC. I don't know how they schedule this stuff. USC gets an 8 o'clock game. It's an 11 o'clock game for Spartan fans. Nobody liked it. I know I didn't. Ended up going to bed at like 3 o'clock in the morning. USC now has to travel and play a noon game at Illinois, which is, I guess, technically it's like an 11 a.m. game, which is 9 a.m. for them.
Mm-hmm.
So they get to feel like what all the East Coast teams happen. What do you see in this game? Because USC coming in riding high. Maeva, now, I'm hearing people talking about him for the Heisman since Oklahoma's quarterback broke his hand. And Illinois got to be licking their wounds because Indiana that was true belt to ass right there. That was just like, seriously, let up. Take your starters out, Signetti. Nah, more. Remember that old Kobe Bryant commercial? More. And he kept getting more. So what should we expect in this game? USC, is the time change going to affect them or they just got it going because their offense is going, the defense is going. The only thing that USC does to me is just penalties. Penalties keep shooting them in the foot. Like if they eliminate their penalties and just reduce it to like 3 or 4, this could be a really good team.
No, I agree for sure. I think, and we saw all last week within the Big Ten, it was very much a line of scrimmage Saturday where the team that was dominant, at least on one side of the ball, won every game. And we saw that with Wisconsin getting dominated by Maryland's defense. We saw with USC's offense dominating Michigan State at the line of scrimmage. We saw Indiana, both sides, offense and defense, dominating the line of scrimmage against Illinois. And I think USC's defense has a big advantage over the Illinois offensive line. We saw the issues that they had against Duke in the game week 2 where they gave up 4 sacks in the first half, but Duke couldn't take advantage of it because they kept turning the ball over. And then Illinois wound up just kind of outpacing them, and they weren't in a lot of passing situations, so you kind of forgot about it. Mm-hmm. But Indiana, they saw the tape. Signetti mentioned they saw the tape. They were very confident that they would be able to get after him, and they certainly did. And USC, they are one of the best teams at getting after the quarterback and creating negative plays. So I don't know how Illinois fixes that line problem in a week when we've already seen twice they've given up, at least 4 sacks. It was 7 against Indiana, and I think it's been 16 on the season, which is a lot in 4 games. So I don't know how you get that fixed.
Yeah, and I looking at USC and what they did to Michigan State, they're definitely going to bring the heat. And they were in the Spartan backfield, and Spartan backfield, not the greatest offensive line either. And there was a couple plays where the guy met the quarterback at the mesh point and just, no, I'm going to tackle both of you if I have to. I don't know who has the ball. I'm just going to get both of you. So I just wonder if the time difference will be to, Illinois' advantage that, playing at 9 o'clock in the morning. Is that going to be that big of a deal for USC? Or does Lincoln Riley finally realize I don't need to pass the ball for 400 yards. I just need to control the game, let my defense do what they're going to do. I got a quarterback that I'm grooming. He's doing well. And, are they going to get the wide receiver back for this game?
Yeah, I'm not sure on Jacoby Lane yet, but obviously if he comes back, that makes it even more of an uphill climb for Illinois. I do wonder about the time change because we saw when Oregon played Northwestern and it was a noon Eastern kick and they looked kind of sluggish for a while and it kind of took them a while to get going. I know USC's already come east, but it was Purdue, and it was a 3:30 kick, and obviously they got delayed forever. So the body clock issue not as bad, but you at least have gotten logistically, you've done the cross country travel once already. So I wonder if that helps or not. But I think it's fascinating to me seeing USC kind of turn into a run first team, which we haven't seen under Lincoln Riley, and just be willing to just hand the ball off or call QB runs with Maeva, or Maeva. And again, this is something we hadn't seen. When you had a guy like Miller Moss back there a year ago, it was just drop back to pass over and over and over and over and over again. And now you have a mobile QB with these two running backs that you got out of the portal and out of JUCO. And I think they're running it close to 55% of the time.
Yeah.
For a Lincoln Riley team is unheard of. And for USC, it's unheard of. Even when they had Reggie Bush and Lindale White, like they didn't run it as much as they're running it now. So we'll see if that continues moving forward. And if it does, they're going to be real hard to beat.
Right. I mean, I'm looking at, Waymon Jordan had like 130 some yards against MSU. 100, actually, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
157 yards.
Yeah.
So I shorted him some. And yeah, I mean, is Maeva that guy? I mean, is this legitimate, the Heisman talk, or is it too soon? Because the thing that I've said about college football this year, for everybody saying it's down, I think it's down in everybody's perceived eyes because 12 teams could win the title, which is actually what you really want.
Yep.
Nobody is like, because I always laugh because it's like in baseball, it's like, I get sick of the Yankees winning it all the time, or I get sick of the Patriots when they won it all the time. But you need a Goliath. You need something like that, because when it's wide open, it's like, it's a down year. Well, I'm like, this is a year that I could name 12 teams right now and say, could they win? And yeah, they could. And I say that to say, there's no. I don't know who's going to win the Heisman this year. I thought I did, and then now he's going to be gone for a month.
Right.
So I thought Oklahoma's QB was going to be that guy, and then now he's out for a while, broke his hand.
Mm-hmm.
Is Maeva, is he legit? Could he win the Heisman?
If he keeps putting up these video game numbers, I mean, he's certainly be in the discussion for it. They're going to have some high-profile games. This Saturday will be one of them. You get Michigan, you got Notre Dame, you got Oregon late in the year. So you got some high-profile games to put up some numbers. The fact that he can throw it and run it certainly helps. Like, he's not just a statue back there. So, as we saw in the Michigan State game, he was able to get out of trouble, on a third down and keep the drive alive. So the fact that he's a dual threat, I think, certainly helps with the Heisman discussion. And I mean, right now, probably between him and Dante Moore in terms of which quarterbacks are playing the best in the Big Ten, and the way that Lincoln Riley calls a game and all of the weapons he's got around him, I don't see why this can't continue. Maybe not to 9 yards of play like USC's averaging, but I don't see why they can't be a top 5 offense in the country moving forward.
All right, well, you brought up Dante Moore. I was going to get to him later, but let's talk about Oregon and Penn State whiteout, and they're doing it right because it's at 7:30 at night, because the whiteout at noon is not wasted. I mean, it's so wasted. Don't get me started on Fox and the big noon kickoff. Anyway. I always I don't know if you ever saw the movie Mean Girls, but when the one girl kept trying to make this word Fletch a thing, and they're just like, stop trying to make that a thing. And I just want to be like, Fox, stop trying to make noon a thing. No one wants to hear that. Oregon, Dante Moore going up against Penn State, their defense. I was wondering, is Dante Moore really that good? Or is it just the system? And honestly, you or I can go play quarterback at Oregon, and we're just going to put up numbers. It's like it's plug and play. New running back, new O-line, new wide receivers. Oregon will always be Oregon. Is he just benefiting? Is he benefiting from that, or is he legitimately that good?
I think it's yes to both, to be honest. It certainly helps. And I think Ohio State and Oregon are the only two teams in the conference where you can literally just plug and play at this point. The way that Dan Lanning's built this thing up, You get a top 5 recruiting class in high school back-to-back years, and you add a top 5 class in transfer portal. I think they had the number 1 class in the transfer portal this past year. And with the coaching staff that they have, it's
that Phil Knight Nike money. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're just loaded. And I feel like they get the benefit of the doubt, just like Ohio State gets the benefit of the doubt, because, the rosters are going to be loaded. And, that's a credit to Dan Lanning and the operation they got. But we knew Dante Moore was really talented. I think he got thrown in the fire way too soon at UCLA. Going to Oregon, being able to sit behind Dylan Gabriel and kind of reset and learn and, be around, be in a real system with a ton of talent around you. Now he's showing why he's a 5-star quarterback. And I give Lanning a lot of credit in that they're super balanced across the board. They've got 4 or 5 different running backs to hand the ball off to. They got 3 or 4 different receivers to throw to. I don't know how you take it all away. I think the biggest thing is, can Penn State get pressure and kind of rattle more first real road, hostile environment. Playing at Northwestern is just a different environment, obviously, than playing at Penn State.
Northwestern, until they get the new stadium, it's like playing out of high school. Let's be for real.
Yeah, and it just, you've heard several people, former players, kind of say, when you're playing at Northwestern, you got to bring your own energy, just because it's the crowd's kind of half and half, and it's not as big. And going from that to 105,000 at night under the lights, white out, arguably the best atmosphere in college football. I want to see what that looks like. And we'll see with that offensive line, if they can get the snap count the way they need to, because if it's some false starts and they get in the 3rd and long, Penn State's defensive line, probably top 2, top 3 at worst in the Big Ten, with Denai Dennis Sutton and Zane Durant. They're going to put a lot of pressure, and I feel like they're going to have more win the game, and I want to see if he can do it.
Now for Penn State, you got all the guys who came back between Drew Aller and Singleton and those guys. Are they going to be able to move the ball against Oregon? Because, Oregon, like I said, they look different against Northwestern. It was a slow start. Like I said, this is going to be a later game, so I think their body clock will be okay. Can these guys, are they going to be able to get this thing rolling at Penn State? Because I think this would be, technically Oregon's 6, so it won't be a top 5 game for James Franklin, because we all know his bugaboo with that. But is this something that James Franklin can get over the hump and win one of these top games?
He certainly needs to. I think he's been able to check off some things in the past. At first it was, you couldn't get to the playoffs, and you win a couple playoff games, but the teams you beat, it's SMU, it's Boise State. So there still is this bugaboo of, can you win in a big game? You've been wanting to get a real whiteout. You got one. And that 2016 game against Ohio State, when Grant Haley blocked the field goal, returned it for a touchdown, that was 9 years ago. So they haven't had a really big regular season win, basically since then. And you're the favorite. You were the favorite to win the Big Ten entering the season. According to the media, you were picked 2nd in the preseason in the AP poll. You mentioned, you had all the guys coming back, complete veteran squad, both sides of the ball. This is a game you got to win. And there's already talk, nationally, I've seen some things where, if Penn State loses this game and they lose to Ohio State, can a 10-2 Penn State team get in the playoff? And you want to avoid all of those discussions. Just go out, win this game, prove you're worthy of that number 2 ranking, prove that you should have been the favorite to win the league. It's at home. And again, you lost 13 straight regular season games against top 10 teams. So
this is right. And this is what those guys came back to play for. Games like this. So, look, they got the best, in my opinion, the best 1-2 running back combination. So, just Allard, don't do too much. Don't turn the ball over. Lean on your defense. Use the crowd to your advantage. I've seen the whiteout. It's pretty good. I tell everybody, it should be on everybody's bucket list. You want to at least experience a whiteout one time in your life, because it's legitimate. But between Allen and Singleton, I think they should be able to control the game. Oregon, Dante Moore. I don't know. I'm not quite a believer in him yet. I think it's more of a system like Miami for USC showed me, you know what? I am legitimate. I can get this thing done. Now, I think for them, it's more their next biggest test when they get Michigan to come out there because that Michigan defense, yeah. Yeah. Was it Barham, Jaysean Barham?
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I as you can see, I went to Michigan State. That's the best defensive lineman rush edge I've seen at Michigan ever.
Saying a lot.
This kid wreaks havoc. Defensive coordinators are like, I don't know how I'm going to block him because he's just going to come relentlessly. So we'll talk about that one next week. But yeah, looking at what they did, I was like, okay, he looks like a legitimate quarterback. Dante Moore, I mean, I really wasn't overly impressed when at that Northwestern game. Let's just be real. I just figured, okay, that's a stat padding type of game where you go out there and throw for damn near 400 yards because it's Northwestern. So we will see. We'll see what's going to happen with that. Indiana. My goodness. Indiana. See, like you said, Penn State wanted to avoid the conversation. I think that's why Indiana said, we're going to beat this ranked team. Illinois was ranked 9 at the time. We're going to beat them. We're going to beat them senseless. And I think it was a message being sent. I think Cernetti left the starters out there and just rolled the score up so that down the line when people are arguing, they're going to be like, hey, we knocked out a top 10 team, and it wasn't close. Harold, it was it was a video game where it was a reset video game where, you know what, if we playing and you beat me so bad, we don't need to finish this. I can see, let's hit the reset button and we play a new game. That's what it was. That was a reset button game where they scored and then they scored and then they scored. And Illinois is just sitting there and Bielema is like, what the heck is happening? I never thought I'd see a sold out 58,000 people in Bloomington for something that wasn't a basketball game. If you told me they held a basketball game outside, I would say, yes, they could fill the stadium. They've never. I mean, it used to be like Northwestern. Indiana game was half and half. You could go and get tickets for little to nothing. He challenged the student section last year. You guys need to, we're going to have big games here. You guys need to show up. They showed up. That was, I mean, it was impressive. Like this Indiana team, they wanted to prove they weren't a one-hit wonder. They're going to be here for a while. I think the probably the one person who hates seeing all of this success for Indiana, maybe Jonathan Smith at Michigan State, because they came in at the same time. Yeah. So you can't sit here and say, well, I need time. He doesn't. I need to get players. He didn't. He got his players. He brought them with him. Why didn't you bring yours? I'm looking at what Cignetti is doing with this Indiana team, and is this a case where, and we're going to get to the game, but I want to ask you this question. Does Indiana have to pony up the money to keep him there? Because I could easily see him getting poached by an SEC program and coming down there and saying, hey, can you do to us what you did to Indiana? Because you took a team not known for football. They weren't. It's not like they were a dormant program. They weren't a sleeping giant. Indiana hasn't been good since 1987. Maybe, a couple years here and there where they were decent. And, I mean, do you think he can get poached by an SEC school? Or, a school like Oklahoma State who just lost their coach?
Yeah, I'm sure the people will call, but I've already seen Indiana pony up the money immediately after the season. Like, they already gave him an extension and gave him more money. I wouldn't be shocked if they did it again. I also wonder if he's a guy that wants to move around. Like he did it at lower levels of football, and now that he's in the Big Ten and he's, he could just be a legend there. Like, I don't see why he would necessarily have to leave. If you can make the playoff at Indiana, like, why go somewhere else? Like,
and this is not, and for those watching, this isn't the playoff in the old Big Ten where you just got to win the West, which was considered the weakest part. He's making the playoffs in a unified Big Ten and just beating 63-10, 35-10 at halftime, and then 28 unanswered points in the second half. I love his mindset. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people look at him as, Coach Richard, but hey, you know what? Better to be a Richard than be a cat.
It's fair, completely fair. And you can tell he never smiles on the sideline. He's always got that snarl on his face. It doesn't matter how many points they're up by. He's a perfectionist. He really believes in this system. He's won everywhere he's been. And I love that he just says what he feels. Like even in the pregame for the Iowa game this week, they asked him about it, and he was like, well, definitely going to be a tougher challenge than last week for sure. And you're like, man, like you already beat Illinois by 53 and you're still kind of taking some shots at him. But that's just who he is. They were playing Indiana State earlier in the year, and they asked him pregame kind of, what you thought about the game. And, most coaches will say, hey, that's a good team over there, and we need to do this and that. And he was just like, hey, look, they're outmatched. Let's just call it what it is. Like, we still need to play, but like we know what it is. Like, we got better players than they do. So I can just appreciate that he's a guy that just calls it like he sees it. He coaches that way. They lead the country in average margin of victory. He's beaten teams by 36 points per game since he's been there. That's crazy for Indiana.
Right. And, we talked about USC's quarterback, Fernando Mendoza. Is this a guy that could possibly end up with a seat in New York?
Certainly could. And, that was one primetime game where you threw 2 incomplete passes and you had 5 touchdowns. And the last 2 weeks, you got 3 incomplete passes and 10 touchdowns. In that kind of system, they continue to score. They continue to win. I don't see why he couldn't at least be in the discussion. Obviously, they got another huge game after the bye week. They go to Oregon, on the 11th. So that's another prove-it game. If he does well there, if Indiana keeps winning, I don't see why he can't be in a discussion. I really don't, if you're going to put up numbers like that.
No, you're right. You're right. What does Iowa do? Iowa not really – I mean, they kind of bucked the trend last week and scored, 38 points? Mm-hmm. Iowa's not known for scoring. Indiana is. Can Iowa keep this offense at bay?
I feel like if they will, it'll have to be with their offense. It seems like they've kind of found something with Mark Gronowski at quarterback in the run game. Like, he hasn't been as great of a thrower as they would have liked, but they're kind of using him like Ohio State uses JT Barrett, where it's, hey, it's 3rd and 3, 3rd and 2. You keep it. Go get the first down. Let's extend the drive. And so, like, I know against Rutgers, he had 13 carries. He ran for 55 yards. I think he's top 5 in the Big Ten in rushing touchdowns as a quarterback. So they're just using him a ton in the run game. And I think the way to beat Indiana at this point is just to keep their offense on the sideline, because it's so explosive. And I think if Iowa gets in a game where they're down 14-0 or 21-7, it's going to be really hard to come back. So I think they just have to.
They're not built to come back from anything more than a 7-point deficit, in my opinion. They just don't. They're more of a downhill type of team. They get on top and then they just suffocate you.
Yep. And the defense hasn't been as good as it usually is last couple of years. They've been giving up some big plays in that secondary. I mean, we saw even last week, Ethan Khalid-Manis threw for 330. It's just they missed a couple field goals and then they gave up a kickoff return touchdown. And that's how Iowa was able to win that game. So, I have a hard time seeing how they stop them, but I think you got to limit the possessions. Hopefully, Kinnick, the crowd, it gets them into it. And then you see what happens if everyone's telling you how great you are, you're on top of the world. Now you're back in the playoffs, all that stuff. And we got Oregon coming up after that. This is a trap spot.
And yeah, I was about to say, the only thing I can see that would be Iowa's advantage is a trap game of kind of relaxing and looking forward to Oregon, because they're only a 7.5-point favorite. I thought they would be a lot more. And if you're Iowa, you're praying to God that the weather just turns bad and it becomes just a nasty
muck
game
it up.
where you're kicking a bunch of field goals and maybe, just maybe, you would have a chance at knocking off the Indiana Hoosiers. I mean, because as a Michigan State fan and alum, I never thought I'd see the day where I'm jealous of Indiana football. But It is what it is.
Yeah, he's done such a great job there. And one thing that was interesting from the Illinois game that I kept noticing is Indiana seemed like it was always 3rd and 2. It was always 3rd and 3. They were never in 3rd long. And if Iowa's got a chance, I think if they're in 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, maybe you can get them off the field. But that starts with stopping the run. And Illinois wasn't able to do that. We'll see if Iowa can.
Now, Ohio State had the bye week. Now they're back. They're going out to the West Coast as well, taking on Oregon. It's 3:30 kickoff, so 12:30 Washington. We went out to Washington. 12:30 Washington, Seattle time. Once again, look, teams from the East going out to the West, I don't know what it is when you cross that Mississippi River, what changes, what happens, what you got to do. But I look at this, we talked about the Husky team before, how they, at the time, best quarterback, running back, wide receiver combination. Do the Huskies have what it takes? Because they've kind of flown under the radar. This is their prove-it game of how legitimate are you. You knock off Ohio State, and all of a sudden you're going to get a little number next to your name, and now you're going to get a ton of notoriety. But right now, this is kind of your first real test. You played in the Apple Cup, but let's face it, you were supposed to win the Apple Cup. Now you got the Buckeyes. What do they got to do? And if you're Ohio State, is it just, can you overcome the West Coast trip and just go out there and handle your business and remain the number 1 team in the nation?
Yeah, this is my favorite game of the week. And I know Oregon Penn State's a top 10 matchup and all of that, but I'm just fascinated with this game. Washington's got the 2nd longest win streak at home in the country. They won 22 in a row there. But Ohio State doesn't lose these games. They won 19 in a row on the road against unranked teams. And so these are games where they just go out and they take care of business. But again, this is Julian Sands' first road start. You mentioned the West Coast travel. They haven't seen an offense like this. Washington, as we talked about, I think it's still the best QB, running back, receiver trio in the conference. I'm gonna probably give it away. This is kind of my big stat, so to speak. But if you take away the kneel downs at the end of games or end of halves, going back to the Colorado State game, Washington has scored on 21 straight drives.
Wow. You know what? That's one hell of a stat.
21 straight drives.
Outside of kneel downs at the half and end of games, 21 straight drives they've scored.
Yes. Going back to the
touchdowns and field goals, they've scored.
They've scored.
Yeah, saying going on the road first time, an offense that I think is going to be better than what Texas. It's the offense we thought Texas was going to be. Mm-hmm. Ohio State has a great defense, but can they put up the points? And going out there to play at Husky Stadium is going to be a challenge. But I didn't even think about that. This is going to be Sands' first true road game, and look, they get a nice crowd, and I'm sure there's going to be some Buckeye fans there.
Oh yeah,
but. I think it's going to be a challenge for the Buckeyes. I think that when you look at why am I drawing a blank on the coach, Washington coach?
Jay Fish.
Fish has a different type of mindset, man. I saw that last year when he played Michigan, where he doesn't, it's just like
he's unconventional. He can call anything at any time.
Yeah, you know what? You can't stop this, so I'm just going to keep doing this until you stop it. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to outthink. I'm not going to outcoach myself. I'm not going to do whatever. I'm just going to say, this is your weakness, and we practice for your weakness. Fix your problem, because that's not my problem.
Yep.
And we're going to keep scoring. So I look at this as well. Ohio State is favored by 7.5 points,
and that number keeps coming down, because I think it started around 9 or 10 when the week started. So it's interesting that a lot of actions heading toward the home team, and I'd have to look, but a top ranked team only being favored by a touchdown against an unranked team seems kind of low, right? It seems kind of rare. Like normally that's that would be a 10 or 14 or something like that.
Right. Can't even say it's a sandwich game because you played Ohio and that you beat.
Yep.
And the thing is, they're winning games, but they're not winning games the way
Right.
that you expect. You beat Ohio 37-9. I expected that to be like 67.
And I think it was 9-3 at the half, and Ohio even took the lead to start the second half. So, and then it was like they woke up after that and, put their foot on the gas. But the fact that it was even a game, and I think Ohio's a pretty good MAC team, don't get me wrong, but if you're the number one team in the country, you would think it would be over at halftime, not, you 2.5, 3 quarters, and then eventually you pull away.
I don't really give you credit for beating Grambling State 70-0. I don't. Sorry.
Right.
You get that. The only thing about that game, don't get anybody hurt, and don't you dare lose it. But other than that, that's empty calories to me.
Yeah.
So Texas was 14-7. Like I said, the Ohio game was like, wait, are they really about to lose to Ohio? I just don't see that offense clicking. So, and like I said, if the game was at the Horseshoe, I would feel comfortable saying I think Ohio State could win this thing. But, as I've stated before, going to the West Coast, teams just don't always fare that well. And I'm starting to think it's just a psychological thing. I don't even think it's just anything physical. I just think that you've been told, you don't play well out here.
And then you got to do all this preparation differently, and you got to leave a day earlier, and you got to stay up later, and like all this stuff to get your body adjusted. Yeah, I feel like after a while it does become really mental because you're trying to do all of these things to prevent something that might not be as big of a deal as everyone makes it out to be.
Right. I mean, I've seen coaches like, we're going to go out early. No, we're going to go out the day of. We're going to do this. We're going to change this. We're not changing a thing. Kind of reminds me like when the NFL teams go over to Europe and they just don't really know the formula. It's like, do we leave right after that game and get adapted, or do we wait, leave on a Thursday and basically just kind of wake up on a Sunday morning and play this game? That to me is the whole East Coast, West Coast type of thing. Harold, I would ask you for the stat, but my God, other than kneel downs, 21 straight scoring opportunities that the Huskies have had. And I think that the Huskies are the team that really nobody talks about, because I thought maybe they could become this year's Indiana until Indiana was just like, yeah, we're not giving up the title. We still want to be a part of the Big Four. I mean, of Oregon, Penn State, Ohio State, Indiana, which one do you think should be the most on the upset alert?
I probably lean Penn.
Well, I guess Penn State and Oregon ain't really upset alert,
right?
Playing each other, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Of that, I probably lean Penn State there. Just being at home in the whiteout, I think the defense finds a way to get it done. I really want to see this Ohio State thing. And maybe I'm just too high on Washington, and I've been high on Washington since July. So there could be some bias coming in with that. And look, Ohio State, I think, should be able to score on Washington. I don't think Washington's defense is nearly as good as their offense. And we saw Wazoo was able to move the ball up and down the field for 3 quarters. And then I think they started to press once Washington got up a couple scores and was turning the ball over. But Ohio State should be able to score. But if that becomes a shootout and it winds up being who's got the better quarterback, I think that goes to Washington, especially at home. And so I want to see what happens if Washington, if they get a lead at halftime, or if it's tied going into the fourth quarter and you need a play from a quarterback. Like, I'm going to take Lamar Williams over Julian Sand right now.
I mean, here's the beauty of it. I mean, Big Ten has games leading from noon all the way to the end of the night, one after another. You start off with the USC Illinois game. That bleeds into either you could watch the Ohio State-Washington game or the Indiana-Iowa game. Finishes off Oregon, Penn State, whiteout. I'm looking forward to it. So,
oh, yeah. It's the best week of the year so far, so it's going to be a lot of fun.
So, yeah, UCLA, Northwestern, is this just the battle for the first pick of the draft next year?
Yeah, I mean, with UCLA off the bye, I'm just curious to see what that looks like. Interim coach, are the players still engaged? Like, what does that whole thing look like? Especially,
did anybody leave?
I hadn't heard of anybody leaving. But again, I know that's one of those things where
I know technically you don't leave. You just all of a sudden got a toe injury and you out for the next 8 weeks, but you didn't quit on your team. You've just been injured for 8 weeks.
Right.
I got you.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of any of those. But yeah, I want to see both of those teams coming off a bye. What does that look like? I think Minnesota Rutgers could actually be very interesting. Those are two teams that I could see scoring a good amount of points. Ethan Kaliakmanis is probably the best quarterback in the Big Ten no one's talking about. And I think Rutgers actually has a top 2 or 3 receiver trio in the conference, and which you wouldn't really think of for Rutgers. You think more of run the ball, play defense, get special teams. But they got 3 dudes with Ian Strong, KJ Duff, DT Sheffield. So, Kaliakmanis is going back to Minnesota where he started for a couple of years. You're curious to see what the crowd, how they react to him and how PJ reacts to him. So it's a nice little appetizer at noon. If you need to flip over from USC Illinois, I think that could be an entertaining game.
All right, Harold. Like I said, you already gave a stat. I appreciate your time. This should be a fun weekend. I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to breaking down the games. And we'll be back next week previewing week 6 in the Big Ten. I'm Rico Beard for Harold Shelton, the Big Ten Network. Thanks for watching the 5 Star Zone, guys. Be back later on this weekend and next week. As I said, we'll be ready to break down week number 6. Until then, keep liking, subscribing to 5 Star Zone.